To introduce myself, I am Irish, as you may have guessed. I started out here working for RTE actually, and News Talk and a whole bunch of other people. Started a company doing online video back in 2006 and mobile video for people like 3 and O2, and then went over to Dubai and worked there, and for the last couple of months have been working with Kiip. Kiip launched in April of last year. It does something that's pretty simple. We give people rewards for their digital achievements. So that can be in games, it can be in apps, it can be anywhere really. The rewards can be anything from a can of Coke to the trip of a lifetime to virtual currency. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it later on, but I'm kind of here to talk to you a little bit about moving from brands shouting at people and saying, buy our stuff, to brands engaging with people a little bit more. And we've seen that happen quite a bit, but trying to engage with people is nothing new, right? So does anyone know anything about art? Does anyone know this painting? Audience participation. So this is a painting by Manet. It's and I hope I do my old French teacher down the road in Belvedere justice. It's a bar at the Folies Bergère. And there's something unusual about the painting. Two unusual things, actually. I don't know if anyone is aware of the two unusual things in the painting. Well, yeah, the reflection is weird, but in the bottom right and the bottom left, there's two things that you would normally just pass over, but at the time were kind of interesting, right? So in Paris, this drink wasn't particularly popular. Down the road here in Fagan's, you could buy it because it is the favorite drink of our former Taoiseach Bertie Ahern. And it's 2 bottles of Bass. And it was the first kind of time that we started seeing brands effectively paying an artist to put their product into a painting. And it was a way of driving awareness of Bass. And if anyone's familiar with the Lumiere brothers, who were the kind of pioneers of cinema, and they did that famous film of a train coming into a station, and they have one which is a battalion of guards marching. And as they march past, this kind of slightly incongruous woman wheels a trailer out in front of them, and written on the trailer in massive letters is Sunlight Soap. And the Lumiere brothers had a contract with the guys from Sunlight Soap to insert this slightly blunt instrument piece of branding into all of their films. So you would have this film where something would be happening in the background, and suddenly someone would wheel this little thing across, and it would go, hey, try Sunlight Soap. Whether or not it worked, is another thing altogether. But I mean, the reality is that brands want to engage with people, right? They want to be liked. They're kind of like small children in the sense that, they don't necessarily always play well with others. They're sometimes a little bit precious about things. But fundamentally, they want to be liked. And the underlying businesses, I don't know if anyone's ever read the book, The Corporation, businesses themselves exist to generate profit, regardless of what they say about not being evil or being nice or any of these different things. They exist to generate profit, but the brands that sit over on top of them are brands that, that want to be nice, that want to be human. And humanizing brands is really important. So here's an example, right? This is a bank in New Zealand. So they did a big rebrand comparatively recently where they wanted to humanize their brand. So top or bottom, who thinks, which of those is more of a human brand? Yeah, so the bottom is more of a human brand. They got a lot of abuse for it because a lot of people said that in the context of what's happened with banks comparatively recently is interesting. They said it looked like a slug. It looked like someone holding their hands out going, give me money, give me money. But it's the bottom one, right? So this humanized, ANZ Bank, right? How much do you think they spent on it? Guess, throw a number out in dollars, right? They spent $15 million on the rebrand, right? Which leads me to believe that A, I probably should have spent more attention in art class, and B, that the amount of money that people will pay to actually do this is phenomenal because it's so important. And their kind of tagline was, we live in your world, which again is slightly ironic for a bank to say. But it worked, right? So 6 months later, they had a massive increase in their Q1 and Q2 profit and a huge increase in their underlying profit. So this stuff is really important. And the reason that brands want to talk to people and engage with them is because actually if brands are engaging and nice and they tap into some level of emotion, well, actually they're a lot better than a brand that just has a billboard going, hey, you should buy some of our stuff, or hey, please try and buy some more of our stuff. Right, so a great example of this is Justin Long doing the Are You a Mac or a PC ads, which I'm sure most people will remember, where the two characters in the ads were effectively the personification of two very different brands. You might guess, given that I have an iPad and also carry an iPhone and have a MacBook somewhere behind here, I don't necessarily look like Justin Long, but I'm a Mac person. And they did a really, really good job of effectively kind of chopping the legs out from underneath a lot of PC manufacturers with ads that were gentle and kind of joshing, but also had a fairly serious point. And fundamentally, brands want to communicate their values to you. So with Mac, it was that they're young, they're hip, they're cool, they're interesting. With others, with Johnny Walker, it's that it's a brand that makes progress. That's why they have this character walking forward all the time. With Davidoff, do you want to smell like? Who wouldn't want to smell like Ewan McGregor? I'm sure I'm sure it's wonderful. It's fragrant in his world. Bizarrely, is anyone a fan of action movies? It's okay to admit it, because I am. Steven Seagal has his own brand of energy drink, which if you ever have the time, there's a really cool website called agonybooth.com, and there's a review of Steven Seagal's energy drinks on agonybooth.com, which I still rank as actually one of the funniest. I mean, it's about 8 pages long, but it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. I mean, the too long, don't read version of it is the drinks are horrible. But brands engaging with people in this way it's all about communicating their values and endorsements from people. And humanized brands have hugely engaged customers. I mean, I don't know if anyone in this room has a brand tattooed on them anywhere. I know I don't, and some of these are a bit bizarre. I mean, you may in some years to come regret having the Yahoo logo tattooed on you, or Wendy's. But for example, Johnny Walker, I did some work with them in the past, and they get a lot of photographs posted on their Facebook wall of people who have that striding man tattooed on their body. So if people are willing to mark their body forever, because tattoos don't go away, it's like getting a dog, it's not just for Christmas, that's quite a big deal. And if you look at brands that are really interesting and doing interesting things now, and Facebook obviously allows them to do it, they engage like human beings. So I don't know if anyone saw this on Facebook reasonably recently. It was a letter that this girl wrote into Sainsbury's saying, so Sainsbury's have this type of bread called tiger bread, right? Doesn't necessarily look like a tiger. And this little girl wrote in and said, why is it called tiger bread? It should be called giraffe bread, which, as it turns out, could be a $15 million rebrand. But it was really interesting because it actually looks a little bit more like a giraffe. But what Sainsbury's did was really cool, because they replied, and they said, look, this makes sense. As it turns out, they actually renamed the bread giraffe bread, which was even better. But what I liked the best was, if you look at, I don't know if it's kind of big enough to see, but where the little girl wrote, she said, love from Lily Robinson, age 3.5. And the Sainsbury's brand guy, when he wrote back that he was 27 and a quarter, or 27 and a third, sorry. But those kind of things are, the uplift that Sainsbury's got in terms of people talking about them and people going, oh, maybe I'll try that giraffe bread, was huge, and the amount of publicity that they got out of it was, immeasurable as well. And if you think about it, there's a little bit of a so what moment, right? 5 years ago, if I'd stood on this stage and told you that Old Spice and Amex were going to be two of the most talked about brands, you would have laughed me off of it, right? Because American Express were like massively unglamorous. They were like a card that was accepted virtually nowhere in this part of the world. If you had the Centurion card, it was cool because you could ring someone up and go, I want a reservation at the best restaurant in the world, but you have to earn like £500,000 a year to get that. With Old Spice, it was so naff, it was almost, laughable. But with quite clever social media campaigns and Amex now with Foursquare over in the States, they've managed to put themselves back into the conversation just by engaging with people. Now American Express is one of those brands that people go, yeah, they're kind of interesting. And when it gets to the point where you're competing against Visa and MasterCard, who spend millions and millions of pounds in advertising dollars globally, getting into that conversation is difficult. Rising above the level of, hey, we're Visa, we're sponsoring the Olympics, is kind of difficult, but doing it in a cool way using Foursquare has gotten American Express a lot of recognition. And similarly with Old Spice, you're competing against Lynx or Axe, as it's called elsewhere in the world, and using a guy doing something funny, video where he goes around on a horse and talks about various different things, the guy your girlfriend wants you to be. Again, they inserted themselves into the conversation, got themselves in front of a whole bunch of different people. And the reality is that people's attention is a commodity now. And the way that we have traditionally advertised to people is a commodity. It's you're trying to grab their attention for a split second, whether it's screen estate, whether it's a search ad and you're trying to get their purchase intent, whether it's contextual matching or offers, any of those kind of things. I mean, our kind of take with Kiip and what a lot of people obviously are now doing with Facebook and Twitter and Foursquare and social media is that it's going beyond attention and it's engaging with people and it's tapping into their emotions. So everyone has moments, right? Mine came when I came back here, for the first time in a long time to see this happen. I never got the chance. This is the closest I'm ever going to get to playing at Croke Park. you know, the John Bosco's national school team in whatever 1987 was not for me. But people have all of these moments that really matter to them, and whether it's watching your favorite sports team win the All-Ireland, or whether it's finishing a level in Angry Birds, you know, people have all of these massive moments. I mean, I don't know how many people have finished Angry Birds Space yet, or downloaded it. I've nearly finished it. I'm hoping on the plane on the way back I'll get there. But, you know, these are really, really important moments to people where you go, you have that, you know, fist over your head moments. And, you know, even simpler ones like, and this is slightly embarrassing, but on the left is the local kebab shop in Kentish Town where I live. And there's this ongoing battle between myself and this guy I've never met on Foursquare to be the mayor of it. And it's such a pointless achievement. I don't get anything out of it. But you know what? I have probably spent hundreds of pounds in the kebab shop now, going down and going, because I get a little notification that goes, hey, you know, I can't remember the guy's name, even though he's now like my mortal enemy. So, hey, this guy has gotten, you know, he's the mayor. And I kind of go, you know, kebabs again tonight for dinner, you know, and you know, my girlfriend is a little bit sick of them at this point, but, you know, I mean, it's kind of tough luck for her. Obviously, people have these moments as well in Farmville, and, you know, Farmville is a bit of that Pavlovian thing of like, I have to go home at a certain time to water my crops or they will die. And here's the interesting thing, right, is that brands obviously recognize this, right? And brands have smart people, like a bunch of you who work for them or who work with them in agencies going, this makes sense. Look at the amount of time that people are spending playing games. Look at the cool things that companies are doing. So this is something that Cornetto did in Istanbul. It was a really simple kind of digital billboard, digital projection kind of thing where using your phone, you could control what happened on this wall, and you won Cornettos if you won the game. And it was a really simple kind of Tetris-style game. But this one, you know, Cornetto got hundreds and hundreds of people tweeting about them and talking about them. They got lots of people aware of the fact that Cornetto existed. They had there's a bunch of stats online that will tell you this influenced purchase intent. It did all of the things that brands wanted to do, but also it was just a really cool idea, right? This one I really like as well. I don't know if anyone has used the Heineken Star Player app, but again, watching Champions League games, you can go, there's going to be a corner, there's going to be a shot on goal. You can predict actions that are going to happen in Champions League games. And Heineken have done really, really well out of this, and you know, are going to roll it out on a much bigger scale than just doing the Champions League, because obviously in the States they're a little bit more stat obsessed, and you know, if you can get in front of people during NFL games or baseball games, that's hugely influential. And you know, it's a very simple idea, but they're tapping into a very powerful mechanic of bragging to your friends and, you know, being the kind of impressive guy. And, you know, this is nothing new, brands getting into games. So the one in the top left was never released. It's actually, if you can find a copy of it, it's worth a lot of money. It was a game called Coke versus Pepsi, and you played a little character as Coke, and you had to blow up the Pepsi letters. EA Sports have had advertising in their FIFA games for a long time. Budweiser brought out this bartending game back in the 80s where you had to serve people drinks, you know, unsurprisingly. Obama got, you know, a lot of coverage pre the last election in the US for being the first politician to advertise in games. So this was in Burnout on the Xbox, and when you were driving around the course, you could see live, you know, different ads for Barack Obama. So, I mean, the fundamental thing is that all of these games and all of these experiences, whether it's Foursquare or whether it's Farmville or whether it's, you know, does anyone play Draw Something? Right? Does anyone play Draw Something? Yeah. So my username is the same as my Twitter name. If anyone wants to be like, I'm obsessed with it. It's a brilliant game. So 15 million people a day play Draw Something globally. It's why they were acquired for like $200 million by Zynga comparatively recently. And what it is if you've ever noticed, and kids do it, and then worryingly I realized that I do it as well. When people are concentrating, they stick their tongue out and they bite it a little bit. Right? And it's a psychological thing that people do, and it shows that you're massively engaged with something. This is obviously not a very flattering photograph of the tennis player, but when you're seriously engaged with something, it's a hugely powerful moment. And if brands can engage with that, then that's a really important thing for them. And the kind of question is, you know, well, how do I make people stick their tongue out, right? How do I engage with them? And the analogy I always use is, well, what do you do if you want to drink, right? So if I want to drink a water, I'm not going to dig a well, right? I'm going to go to the tap and take it out of the tap. And the analogy is that basically there are, you know, tons and tons of people playing games and already active in games. So rather than going out and trying to build your own app and trying to build your own audience, why not tap into one that already exists? Why not talk to the guys who do, you know, Draw Something? Why not talk to the Zyngas of this world, talk to the EAs of this world, or, you know, if you want, you can talk to people like Kiip. But this is the way that the kind of world is shifting. Now people, when you sit on the bus or the tube, in my case in London, you see people playing games on their phone, and whether it's Temple Run or Angry Birds or Flick Football, which is my kind of particular obsession, they're hugely engaged with these games. And a lot of brands are now obviously involved in it, and you look at it and you see, okay, teenage people, again, a lot of brands want to reach them, massively engaged, massively energized. They love brands. They're not necessarily happy about seeing ads, but they're avid gamers, and getting in front of them is hugely important. And millennials, again, if you look at people who play games, the research now is slightly contrary to what we would have thought 10 years ago, which was people who play games are like social nerds who sit in their room kind of playing Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, that's not the case, because now people who play games have more friends, they spend more time online, they do more interesting things, and they engage with people in more interesting ways. So the reality is that, this world isn't going away, right? People are playing lots of games. They're playing more of them as these kind of devices, whether it's your iPad or your iPhone, or it could be anything. Cheap Android phones, as they start coming out, people are going to play even more of them. Little snackable pieces of content, 5 minutes that they can play on the bus, 20 minutes that they can play while they're waiting for their favorite TV program to come on. And brands need to get into this, and there's a reciprocal relationship here in that, brands need games because they want to get in front of people, and games need brands because if you partner with Unilever or Diageo or a global brand like that, and they go, hey, download this game, and they put it on their Facebook page and they've got 3 million fans, suddenly then you get a ton of people downloading it, and it's really important. And like Audi did it really well. They did the A4 driving challenge on the iPhone. Barclays had a hit with their water slide game, which was basically a game where you slid down a water slide. Samsung did a big integration with Angry Birds when they launched the Galaxy as a way of kind of engaging with people. And this is the thing, like, people are playing games everywhere now, and these games are connected to other people through things like Game Center or through things like OpenFaint or through Facebook or through Twitter and all these different things. So, people are spending huge amounts of time playing games. They're playing them everywhere, and they're connected to people all the time. And what we say is that, rather than shouting at them in the game, why not touch them in a moment that's important to them, right? So give them a gift, give them a reward. This is, if anyone uses a software called MailChimp, they give you little rewards for using their software. And it's not big, but it makes you go, yeah, you know what, those guys are really nice. And that's really important, going, these moments matter to people. If there's a way that we can put something in front of them, that must be important, or it must be a good way of engaging them. So, this is in a nutshell what we do. We say, hey, you know what, you've just finished a game, you've just leveled up, you've just gotten a new high score, here's something for doing that, right? You've put in hours. If anyone knows Malcolm Gladwell, they'll know this theory that if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, then you become like a virtuoso or an expert in it, right? How many people are virtuosos or experts in Angry Birds now? Yeah, there must be thousands of them out there who spend hours swearing at it and giving out about it, and then going back the next day and going, I love this game so much, I have to finish this level. So tapping into those moments that matter is really important. And whether it's something as simple as going, here's some coins for your game, or here's a $5 gift certificate for Best Buy, or here's a packet of crisps, or whether it's a bigger thing of going, we'll allow people to compete against each other, and I'll touch on that in a minute. What we see is there's kind of a framework to all of this where the action layer is where people are playing games and they have moments. There's an achievement layer where the game acknowledges them and goes, you're brilliant at this, you've scored a hat trick in FIFA, you're amazing. You've got 3 stars in every level in Angry Birds, you're the best person ever. And what we've kind of added on top of it is this idea of a rewards layer where we go, actually you can get something out of it. So instead of it just being a one-way conversation where brands say, here's what we do, please buy it, or please use our survey, or use our service, or instead of it being a slightly more engaging conversation that people have on Facebook, what we're now saying is that, that relationship has to be reciprocal. So brands can now give people things for, the moments that they have. And, it's pretty simple. It's have an achievement, well done, you've got a high score doing this, get a reward, and go to a shop and redeem it. It's not massively complicated as far as we see it. Allow people to compete against each other, whether it's, this is something that we did with Disney, where it was basically compete in this massive kind of tournament, and you won a home cinema setup, you won all of these different things. And, these things are hugely powerful and get in front of, millions and millions of people. When you think about, apps that have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million downloads, you know, and millions of daily active users and monthly active users. It's huge. And, you know, the people talking about it is even bigger because, you know, this is what people have tweeted after winning rewards on our network, where they're going, oh, wow, I won this running on the treadmill, right? So we've integrated into health and fitness apps. So, you know, complete a workout, get something nice. You know, I got you flowers by playing on my iPhone. You know, nice little integration for 1-800-Flowers. I'm not entirely sure I Love You Love But where that comes from, or I'm not really sure I want to know where it comes from. But this is the kind of thing that people say, and this is the kind of engagement that they then have with a brand. And they go, you know what, these guys from Best Buy are really nice, or Pepsi is really nice because they've given me something that I actually want. They've rewarded me for an action that I've been taking unrewarded for a very, very long time. And there are so many opportunities to, you know, get into games and get engaged with games. And the reality is that now, you know, people are doing this all of the time, you know, so if you're not getting in front of them, there's going to be a problem. And I'm not saying that we're the only solution for it. I'm saying there are tons of gaming and app-based solutions that you can go out and look at. And, you know, that can be everything from Facebook apps to, you know, web apps to, you know, web-based games. But if you're not getting in front of people kind of on an emotional level, then, you know, I think it's going to be sad times for brands, because this is a whole generation of people who are growing up playing this stuff all the time, looking to be engaged. So those are my contact details if anyone wants to get in touch, and yeah, I'll be around for the rest of the day. So thanks very much for your attention. Thanks for laughing at the appropriate places as well. It's always nice to get, that's like my reward. Thanks to the chat.